When you make a decision to give your heart to Jesus and truly become a Christian, you're making a commitment to think differently, talk differently, and live differently than others around you. This is so that other people around you can see Jesus within you, and we can share with others what we found in Jesus. In 1 Peter 4, we're going to talk about that as we explore what it looks like to live differently than others around you, what it looks like to love others with the love of Jesus, and what it looks like when we are called to stand up for our faith, stand firm in our faith, and how we can do that and find joy in that and glorify God in all we do as we live our lives as Christians. Today, please join me as we read through 1 Peter chapter 4, and we look at practical ways that we can do this and how we can live this out in action, as well as looking at how we can love others around us with the love of Jesus and how we can serve each other with the love of Jesus as well. Take a minute, close your eyes, and think back on your life to a circumstance or a situation in your life that you found exciting. What was the most exciting thing that's ever happened to you in your life? What was the most exciting thing in your life that you've ever done? I want you to take a minute and think back on that time. What was it? Why was it so exciting? And when you think back on that time now, how does it make you feel today? Now I want to ask you this. When you think about your life as a Christian, how does it make you feel? In comparison, what level of excitement do you feel when you think of yourself as a Christian, as opposed to the level of excitement that you feel when you think about the most exciting thing that's ever happened to you or the most exciting time in your life? Do you feel equally excited about being a Christian as you did about the most exciting time in your life? 1 Peter 4, verse 2 says this: "You won't spend the rest of your life chasing your own desires, but you will be anxious to do the will of God." If you're honest with yourself, would you say that you're anxious to do the will of God? Now, as someone that struggles with anxiety, as I think a lot of people do, it can be challenging, it's not always fun, and it's not something we ever think of really in a positive way. However, I do think anxiety can serve a purpose at times, which is to propel us into much needed action. Take, for example, the student that's anxious about an upcoming exam. Well, they'll study harder because they want the desired outcome, which is a good grade on the exam. Or the person that gets a new job and they're anxious about their first day at work. They really want to make a good impression, they're happy and excited about their job, and they want to impress their boss. So what will they do? They will turn that anxiety into action by making sure they do everything possible not to be late for work, and they do everything they can that first day to be productive and be listening and take in everything they can about that new position at work because they want to do well. And I believe in 1 Peter 4:2, that's what it means to be anxious to do the will of God. That rather than looking at what you want or what you think you should be doing in your life, or just simply doing what others around you are doing, or taking the easy route and doing whatever feels good to you in the moment, being anxious to do the will of God means that we are propelled forward to take action and seek God and ask Him, what do you want me to do with my life? What do you have for me to do? How would you like me, Lord, to serve you? 1 Peter 4, verse 3 says this: "For you have spent enough time in the past doing what the pagans choose to do, living in debauchery, lust, drunkenness, carousing, orgies, and detestable idolatry." After reading verse 3, a lot of you would probably stop me and say, well, that's not me. I don't live that way, so I think I'm fine. And I think most of us watching this video and maybe going through this study would say we don't live our lives that way, especially if you're using this in a small group Bible study. We're confident to say we don't do those things, so we're good. But you know what? I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, that's not true. Because how many of us, myself included, can truly say that we are completely surrendered to the will of God and ready and willing to do whatever God calls us to do? That we have put everything in our lives, our jobs, our children, our families, money, success, power, whatever it may be, aside, and really made God the very first priority in our lives. And I think if we look at it from that perspective, a lot of us would pause and say, maybe that isn't me. But I think when we take a step back and we look at 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 3, from our lens of today and our modern society, we can absolutely see that we are not anxious to do the will of God all the time, but rather we are thinking more so about our comforts and what we have and what we have to do and what our goals are. And how often do we pause and see if our goals and the things we want and the things that we're chasing after, whether it be a promotion at work or that new car or the new home or the next vacation, do these things align with God's will in our life? And I'm not saying that it's wrong for us to want good things or to want to take a vacation or buy a new home or a new car. What I'm saying is that the first priority in our lives has to be being anxious to do the will of God and seeking that first, and then allowing all these other blessings to fall in line in our lives wherever they may. The definition of debauchery is excessive indulgence. If we're honest with ourselves, I think a lot of us would admit to ourselves that we excessively indulge in many different things too often, whether that be watching too much TV, gossiping, eating too much, shopping too much, or spending too much money. Whatever that may be, it happens often because our society and our culture promotes indulging in things that make us happy, that we want, because it's a good thing to be happy and to get what you want right now without regard to the future or without regard to what God has or wants for your life. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9 says this, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." It's so important that as we live out our lives, people around us can see the love of Jesus within us, and they can see that there's something about us that makes us different, that attracts them to us, to ask us, what makes you so forgiving? What makes you so loving? How are you able to give so much of your time, and how are you able to be so kind to others around you? That is an open door and gateway for us to share the love of Jesus with them, and that is what we're supposed to do. When I did the study on Isaiah 43, I talked about the fact that things aren't always as they seem. Just because someone seems to have everything in life, just because they have worldly success, maybe money, maybe power or fame or whatever it is that they think or you think is important, that they have it all and that they're happy. All of these worldly things do not equate to happiness and joy in Jesus. And I think as a Christian you'd agree with me that the true joy you have in Jesus is with you no matter whatever season you're going through in your life, whether that be a good season or a really dark season. The joy of the Lord is in your heart, and it really can change your outlook and your perspective on any season that you walk through, in all the seasons of life that you go through. And this is something so important that we need to share with other people. And when we've learned to be anxious to do the will of God in whatever season of life we're in, and we've learned to stand up and defend our faith and proclaim the name of Jesus even when we're suffering and when we're going through trials in our lives, that is when we can truly reap the benefits of a joy-filled Christian life that's a blessing not only to us but to others around us.